Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past.
Hello, how's it going everybody, and welcome back to Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host, Ruben Django Pouch. I've no notes or anything, so this could be a tall rambling mess, but we'll give it a whirl. First things first, I would like to say Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome to 2024, and I hope everyone had a good Christmas and is by default having a good New Year. I know it can be a very tough time for people, so shalom alaikum to anyone out there who is feeling it or has been feeling it over the Christmas period as well. I got a beautiful new pair of Air Max 90s, as you can see. We've been through this before. It's my only sort of obsession or fashion vice is Air Max 90s, and they are a particularly mint pair. Also got this beautiful pair as well right here. Old school, they're a real 90s vibe off them as well. So look, I'm fucking living my best life, aren't I? What was I going to say? Yeah, I had a good idea for a podcast, but it never sort of panned out for me. But I'll give you the basic idea of it, or whatever, the parameters involved, shall I say. I talked before about the LDA, the Land Development Agency, and how I'd seen an article, and I've seen subsequent articles as well, that alluded to the idea that the Land Development Agency, it didn't allude, said it right there, in fact, that they had been granted, or they had spent, should I say, 8 billion euro on property to build houses upon, and as far as I could understand, the only projected housing by the LDA was 13,000 homes. So effectively they've spent 8 million on the property to build a projected 13,000 homes by 2028. And then they also said that in said article that the government were deciding whether or not to furnish the Land Development Agency with a further 7 billion euros, not rupees or anything, 7 billion euros to build said 13,000 homes by 2028. And I was thinking to myself, that's 15 billion euro, and there's also other little loopholes to the LDA. Like if you have land with planning permission upon it, then you get more money for said land. And so I was saying before, if you were a developer, it would probably be more advantageous to you to just get land, get planning permission on it, and potentially get like 500,000 per plot, which is more than you would make after you built the fucking houses. So something seemed off with that to me. The whole landscape of that situation seemed rotten in Denmark. So I sent an email to Simon Harris, because he has his office in Bray, and I'm from Bray, that's my constituency, and he has his office in Bray. So I sent an email, and also he's a part of the coalition government that's overseeing this whole situation, to my understanding. So I sent him, because another thing is, sorry, I'll just say before, is that in Archer's Wood, I think it is, the LDA had some sort of, they either built those houses or they built the affordable housing scheme within that development. And the affordable, from what I could understand and make out, the affordable housing for a one-bedroom apartment on the affordable housing scheme via the LDA, whatever the fuck, it worked out at just below €1,300 per month for a one-bedroom apartment on the Farnkelly Road there. And I thought to myself that didn't seem affordable at all. That was over €300 per week to live on your own, one person, a single person, in a one-bedroom apartment. And I thought that's so straight off the mark. There's another part of this whole situation that I'm thinking, man, that doesn't seem right to me. So I sent an email, believe it or not, to Simon Harris. Simon.Harris@oireachtas.ie or whatever the fuck it is. And I said, Mr. Harris, Minister Harris, in fact, do I have the email there? I can just read it here. So I wrote initially, Minister Harris, I am writing to you in the hope that you can answer some queries I have in relation to the LDA, Land Development Agency. Is the LDA a government body, i.e. a state-run agency funded by tax revenue? I am aware that the LDA has 13,000 homes in the pipeline, but am I right in thinking that those homes are to be built on land acquired by the LDA to the tune of €8 billion? Question mark. Furthermore, are the coalition government currently in talks as to whether or not they should grant the LDA an additional €7 billion to develop said homes that are apparently already in the pipeline? Question mark. Lastly, I am also aware that the LDA have some involvement in the development of Archers Wood and an affordable housing scheme within that development. My question is, how is upwards of €1,250 per month for a single room apartment affordable? Question mark. As a 39-year-old man who earns above minimum wage and still lives with his mother in the constituency where you have your office, I find the idea that a one-bedroom apartment for that money is affordable to be without merit. It's not even perceived value for money, let alone affordable. I appreciate you taking the time to address my queries and look forward to hearing from you. Regards, Reuben Pouch. Now, I will concede right off the top that parts of that are weighted. 100%, right? And so from a journalistic standpoint, it's not great. And I appreciate that. And that dawned upon me as soon as I sent it. But a Mr. John Kelly emailed me back saying, "Dear Reuben, I refer to your email dated October the 3rd. I am replying on Minister Harris's behalf. I would like to answer your questions, and I think the best way is to arrange a meeting in the Bray office. If you would like to meet, please call 01 281 3727 to arrange an appointment. Regards, John Kelly." So I wrote back the next day, "Hey John, really appreciate you getting back to me. I'll call the office on Monday to arrange a meeting, unless, of course, it's easier for you to arrange via email before then. Kind regards, Reuben." I think this is on the Friday, and I never heard back from John. Did I ring on the Monday? No, I didn't. But sometime in that week I rang, and there was no answer. Sometime the following week, early in the following week, I rang, and there was no answer. And then some time in the later part of the following of that same following week, I rang again, and a fellow answered. And I said, "How's it going? I'm ringing pertaining to queries I had for Minister Harris, and I was hoping to arrange an appointment with Mr. John Kelly," as he replied to said queries and suggested I come in for a face-to-face. And the fellow was really nice. He said, "Yeah, no problem." And he took my name. Mr. Kelly wasn't in the office at the time. He took my name, he took my number, and he said he'd get back to me. And he never did. And then I never heard back from him. And I'm trying to remember. I won't say for definite whether or not I tried to ring again, because I can't remember after the fact. But what I definitely did after the fact was send an email. Now, I'll just say this much, that John Kelly emailed me back straight away when I had first sent my email to Minister Harris. And now so he must have emailed me back on the 4th or the 5th of October. And now it's now the 7th of November, and I'm sending an email, having not heard back at all. Gentlemen, I CC'd them both. Gentlemen, I contacted the office with regards to a meeting and left my details with a fellow. I appreciate you are both extremely busy, and so I have reformatted my questions to be less nuanced and potentially weighted in order to alleviate the need for a face-to-face meeting. 1. Is the LDA a state-funded agency? 2. Did the land acquired by the LDA to build 13,000 houses cost €8 billion? 3. Is the state going to furnish the LDA with a further €7 billion in order to finish said houses by 2028? And 4, and I changed this question a bit just to make it more straightforward, was a one-bedroom apartment on the affordable housing list in Archers Wood upwards of €1,250 per month? Looking forward to hearing from you, and thanks again, Reuben Pouch. Boom. Never heard back from them. It's now January the 9th. So nearly 2 months later. And no reply. And look, I've been dealing with some shit. It fizzled out. And I haven't chased it up. And I'll explain later in this episode why I am just sort of presenting it to you in its current state. Alright? I did, because I forgot to mention that I hope everyone had a good New Year, or is having a good New Year so far, and I hope I don't make things worse by saying this, but apart from my beautiful new pair of Air Max, I've had a fucking bit of a howler of of a new year. On New Year's Day, should I say, my car, I have a little Skoda Fabia estate thing that I got off my boss that I really like, and it's basic, and I like basic cars, and I like cars that aren't new and electrical and all. And I love it. And I got it dickied up, I got it serviced. I've done a few things to it, you know. There was a couple of little bits that had been sitting up for a year to 2 years, and it needed just a few little bits and bobs, but it had low mileage, full service history, and bish bash bosh, away in a hack. And I did spend just before Christmas €800 getting it dickied up. I got a full service, I got the track rod ends done, I got it balanced, I got a few things done, and my mechanic is really super nice guy, super accommodating, super meticulous, and super qualified as well, and he doesn't bullshit. He's like, and I'll explain maybe in a minute, but anyway, car was going tickety-boo. I was thinking, I'm loving life here, and on New Year's Day, I brought my young lad up and the dog to Glendalough, and I don't know if you remember, but New Year's Day was a howler of a rainy day. And we went for a walk, and we got absolutely soaked, and we got in the car, and we started up, and we drove down towards Bray from Glendalough. And as we're coming down, you know, we're nearly at Kilmac there. We're about 50 yards from that first little roundabout that you get to, just before Plucks, shall we say. Hit that roundabout, or just as I'm coming up to that roundabout, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? The car had what I could only describe as a complete electrical failure. There was the windscreen wipers were coming on and off, the lights were coming on and off, lights on the dashboard were coming on and off, the power steering went. I was like, OMG, like if that had happened while I was flying down the road just a few minutes previous by Glendalough there, I'd have been in the absolute horrors, you know. So I pull it into Plucks, and it's just even the like digital display, the liquid crystal digital display on the old school dashboard is like scrambling and whatnot, and I was thinking, oh no. So long story short, I got it back to my house the next day, and it's sitting up here while I wait to see what's happening. But it's just like, I've just paid €800, like literally just paid the last little bit of it. And then it's just like, this car could be totally fucked because there's a battery issue, but I know it's a new battery, and I've always thought the car was a bit damp, and could it be an electrical issue? And my mechanic's saying, look, if there's an electrical issue with the car, it's going to fucking destroy batteries, and if that is the case, he said, I'm not an auto electrician, and they are not cheap, and you know what I mean? There was another thing I wanted to say. Oh yeah. But look, bad start, things can only get better. That's the attitude, right? Let's do it. But one thing I will say is I'm trying to get on a health kick, and I've been doing fasting, intermittent fasting for a good while now, and I really think that it's a good thing. And a few times I've tried to push it, or I have pushed it, in fact, as far as I could, and I've done a few, like 24-hour and a 20-hour, and one time I did 40 hours, and according to some people, and look, I can't speak to it too much because I'm not an expert, but according to some people, between the 1 and 16 hours, your body just sort of resets itself, it leaches out toxins and fatty acids and shit like this, right, apparently. And apparently after 16 hours, your body will then start to go into a thing called a state of autophagy. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right, where your body will literally identify like damaged mitochondria, brain cells, blood cells, muscle tissue, etc., and start to fix it. And there are people who swear that like high level fasting is good for to fight cancer and the onset or the growth of cancer, because basically you're not feeding it a lot of shit food for one, but also your body is going into autophagy on a daily basis and repairing damaged blood cells and cancerous shit. Now look, I can't speak to that too much, but what I will say is that I feel much better when I fast. I do at least 16 hours every day. I'm dialed in. If I eat in work, my energy levels just deplete instantly, and it's very hard then just to sort of, it feels like you're swimming against the tide or working in quicksand, you know. And so I do really, I can speak on my own personal whatever with it, and I do feel that it is having a positive effect on me. And the other things, like people say, George St. Pierre and all, that's good for muscle density and bone density and this sort of stuff. And I definitely feel a bit leaner as well. Now I'll be doing my kettlebells and stuff and trying to eat a lot of eggs, a la fucking Eddie Abu, but that's my vibe at the moment. And I've also started taking some supplements. Because obviously also the thing about it is, like, I live at home with my mother, and she has got stage 4 lung cancer. It's also in her brain, and she had chemotherapy less than a year ago and then had an issue just before Christmas, and there seems to be some growth. And now she also mentioned that she hasn't had radiotherapy in 2 years, so potentially she could have another treatment of radiotherapy because... And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, if it had been less time than that, if I'd only had it a year ago, they'd be like, look, we don't see the point here. It didn't really do enough for you. And so I was like, right. And that started to get my wheels turned. I was like, right. So this, and I had this candid conversation with her. I said, look, it just seems like that you will probably be bouncing from treatment to treatment forever. And it would probably be, now would be high time to sort of go, right, let's identify, or let's try and work on, from an environmental point of view, like diet, exercise, breath work, I don't know, everything. Let's throw the fucking kitchen sink at this, and supplementary wise, to try and slow down the cancer growth, or certainly not give your body anything that will accelerate your cancer growth, because we need to make sure that enough time passes in between therapies that you can, and treatments, that you can always get them. Because if that window starts to shrink, then you're in trouble. They'll be like, look, we can't do anything for you, and that's palliative care shit, you know what I mean? And so I was looking into it, this, that, and the other, and I'm always going on about, like, John Udo's Super 8 probiotics. I'm into the apple cider vinegar myself, but I heard a few things came up. I'm reading a bit about Himalayan shilajit and Irish moss, and they're a good combination. I also swear by vitamin D and vitamin B, which is apparently really great. I don't take vitamin B, but I should, and I'll explain why in a while. But apparently from a mental health perspective, it's really good. And obviously we know our gut is our second brain, and if it is in a constant state of inflammation, we got problems, you know. And that's why I think John Udo's Super 8 is great. But apparently then, so I got the shilajit, in fact, should I say, and I got the Irish moss, and we've been taking that for a few weeks, and I think I do feel like it's meant to be antioxidant, anti-aging, vitalistic shit, you know what I mean? And I think I do feel a bit more vitality having taken it consistently for a few weeks. And obviously with these things, you just do it and it's the sum of all its parts. It's, what do they call that, where something compounds? I can't remember. But basically, you just make it a way of life, and you're almost being premeditative or whatever. It's not like you take that for a week and you go, oh yeah, fucking boom. It's just like, do I feel a little bit of that? Maybe. Look, I'm going to keep taking it, and then you just, that's it, you know. And it will definitely take months for that stuff to build up in your system and be really humming, as it were. But another thing I was looking into was mushrooms, and I'm not talking magic mushrooms, I'm talking medicinal mushrooms. And I read a really interesting thing. Well, obviously, and because that's what I was going to say, apparently lion's mane is a great probiotic, and it has polysaccharides, I think is the thing that it has a lot of, and they are good for gastro issues, you know, IBS and another one that I can't remember the name of. But anyway, obviously I'd heard Paul Stamets before on YouTube, and I'm like, oh wow, Jesus, he's talking about the, you know, the biggest living organism in the planet is actually mycelium, and the benefits of this, that, and the other. And then so I was in the back of my head, and a friend of mine, Jimmy, he's mad into this stuff, and he was saying, oh, turkey tail's really good and all. And so then I just started looking, reading a few bits, and I was coming across information that was saying like that in China and Japan, when you get cancer treatment, they give you a mushroom diet in tandem with the conventional medicinal, modern medicinal treatments. But they also give you like a high shiitake maitake diet and high turkey tail and reishi diet. And apparently turkey tail, and Paul Stamets would claim that his mother, who was given 3 months to live, she had cancer, went totally into remission, or the cancer shrunk to such a degree as a result of turkey tail mushrooms. So I was like, fucking hell, let's have a go at this. And there's apparently, he's saying, like, he's a mycologist and he's been working on this stuff for years, and so I was like, whatever, you fucking hippie. But he said now it's really like, oh, no, this is legit. So I got, look over here, this Feel Supreme turkey tail tincture, which apparently is dual extracted from expertly by a crowd in the UK, and like turkey tail mushrooms grow in every forest on the planet and all. And so I got this, and I'm gonna give it to my mum, and I'm gonna take it myself, and I'm gonna keep on this sort of trying to eat right, trying to exercise right, cut out sugar. Like, I'm trying in a big way to cut out sugar nearly entirely. I'm trying in a big way to cut out tobacco. But yeah, I'm also going to lean into like the supplementary and natural stuff as a premeditative measure, and it'll help with my anxiety, because I have awful anxiety connected to my health for some reason, considering I've been very unhealthy my whole life. So look, what was I gonna say? I'm gonna talk for a few minutes about a thing. I just want to check something here. Grant. So what I wanted to talk about was this. I've definitely said this before, where I like the restaurant that I work in, that it stopped doing the nighttime service, and I was the nighttime head chef. And 6 months ago, or maybe a little bit more at this stage, if you'd have asked me how you getting on, Ruben, and working all of it, like, I'm fucking flying it, man. I'm doing the best shit I've ever done, and people are responding well to it, and the numbers are going up. The amount of customers, patrons is climbing slowly but steadily, and I'm happy. I'm feeling like really positive about it. And retrospectively, looking back at that with hindsight, I'm like, Jesus, I was actually in a pretty good place then, and potentially destructive things that I do, neurological pathways, etc., were in the minority. And the way I was living, do you understand what I'm saying? That like the things that I do that are potentially destructive when I'm not it's a vicious circle of not being in a good space and compounding that situation. But those things that I potentially do, like smoking weed and eating shitty food and having a shitty attitude and being potentially grumpy and all, that was not really a major part of what when things were going well for me. Those situations weren't so much of an issue. I was smoking less. I was generally happier. I was etc. And I was doing more positive things for myself. Do you know what I mean? And then it plateaued, and I could feel it coming down the tracks, because I was like, it's plateaued. And I was talking to other chefs, restaurateurs, and they were like, yeah, it's same for us. But then when it kicked back in, sort of mid to late August, it didn't kick back in for me. And that's when this situation happened, basically. And I was, and I'm going to go into it a bit now. Like, I understood the decision, and I've touched on this before, and I can't remember to what degree I've sort of spoken about it, but this is what I'm talking about right now. The situation really rocked me for a couple of reasons, and one that I won't get into too much because it's whatever, is that I suddenly became... Well, no, I will say it. So, this is the ways in which I was rocked. My ego was bruised, obviously. the idea that I was doing a great thing was sort of dashed. This confidence that I had in myself, in what I was doing, was totally dashed, right? As a result of this situation. Naturally so, I suppose. And it's very egoic, I suppose. And parts of this are, and I'm fully aware of that, but I'm just being honest, you know? And here, and another part of it is that, like, it suddenly became, because I got folded into the daytime. There's obviously a daytime head chef who's a very well-rounded, fucking good chef, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, it's two big bull in a one pen, and that had, like, that has been hard for me to deal with in certain ways that I won't get too much into, but and not just from my own ego standpoint, you know what I mean, that I have to live with, whether I like it or not, my ego, that is, but just logistically and creatively, I had a few, I found there were hard pills, there was a couple of hard pills to swallow, but I fucking swallowed them, right? And the thing about, and I was depressed, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was really depressed at that time, and I can't say as a result of this situation necessarily, but I definitely, after that, or by proxy or default, when that decision was made, I sort of got really depressed, and certain days were really fucking hard. Like, I'm serious, like, I was like holding back the tears on my way to work and on my way home from work sometimes, and so angry and frustrated at certain things and certain aspects, and that was definitely manifesting, practically speaking, and I don't like that. Like, I can have a real short temper, I can be a real dick, and I don't like to live like that. I've worked hard to not live like that, and I don't want that to creep back in. And one thing I've come to realise is that I need to feel like I'm doing something. Like, I've always had this idea that, and this is going to sound real arrogant, but I don't mean it in an arrogant way, but I've just always had this feeling like that I was meant for something. Do you know what I mean? And look, if you take that as a character flaw on my part, well, then so be it. But I've just always felt like I was gonna do something. You know what I mean? And I mean, I don't know, because I didn't really do anything to I didn't really work at anything when it was an important time to work at stuff, and that's the thing I'm trying to instill upon my son. Is just like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, into your early 20s, that's when you should be fucking working your hardest. Then you can fucking chill out and enjoy real freedom when you get to my age. I don't have freedom. I don't have financial and freedom. I don't have resource freedom, you know what I mean? And by default, I'm stuck in this circle that what doesn't allow me to put 100% of myself into stuff I would like to put 100% of myself into, you know? But I suppose as a result of having that underlying feeling of like that I was always going to do something, make something of myself, that when things are going good, it's great, but when things are going bad, like when I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel with regards to like these endeavours that I'm talking about that are going to work out for me, then I get fucking really downtrodden and really crestfallen, right? And the thing I was doing is because I was like, that's a failure. You have failed at that, Ruben. That's what I told myself. And it's certainly a perceived failure. And I was like, and you failed at loads of shit. You were married, that you failed at that. And or it didn't work. You had a business, it was a fucking failure. You had a band, it was a failure. You know. And I'll talk about the podcast now in a minute, but I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that's where I went to a really negative headspace with it. And they're not failures, I suppose. It's just the way things worked out. And I just because I said there that I didn't work that much at a time that I think was important to work at, and maybe this is why I think it's important to have put the fucking real hardcore foundation in back then. Is that, and I don't live with any regrets, by the way. I'm whatever is happening, however I feel, that was my journey, and I'm not trading it with anyone. And there are parts of it that I have a son. My marriage didn't work out, but I have for the most part, a fairly amicable relationship with my son's mother, and I have a son whom I love and I'm happy to be a real part of his life, and I fucking work hard at that, because it's not necessarily natural to me. I didn't have a great role model of a father. I didn't have someone to teach me the real ways of the world. I don't think. Maybe, that's what I feel anyway. And I feel happy and honoured almost a little bit that I'm putting the work in, that I'm in a position where I can put the work in, and that it's potentially going to pay dividends, And that was what was, like I said, I went to a dark place with it, and that was upsetting. And obviously I say it all the time, and I keep having to tell myself that I am blessed. I'm sitting on a fucking comfortable couch in a little annex outside my mum's house doing a podcast, and I don't live in Gaza, and I don't live in Aleppo, and I've managed to get out of a situation, or I'm not stuck in a situation, should I say, more to the point, where I've been totally forgotten and left to fall between the cracks. Like, I still have a job that I can fall back on. I still have my mum's house that I can fall back on. You know what I mean? And so, look, the point I've gone up a little bit off point there, but what I'm saying is I went to a really fucking dark place, and I was like going, you're a fucking failure, man. And the fucking writing's on the wall here, and what are you gonna do? And it was making me fucking cry and shit. And I was there going, you can't, you're just going to be some dope in his 60s on a line somewhere in a shit gastro pub going, I remember when I'd be fucking running rings around you lads. I was like, what are you going to do, bro? And I thought I was through that. And I was, because it's ebbs and flows. Like, that's what mental health is. It's a pendulum. You know what I mean? That swings into positive and negative mental health, and it just either hangs up there on the fucking positive for a while, and boom, back, and boom. Or it's consistently in the negative headspace. But the reality of it is it's not. It's mental health, like physical health. There's ebbs and fucking flows. You know what I'm saying? And I thought I was out of that. And then and this is going to sound ridiculous, but on New Year's motherfucking day, when that car shit the bed, I was just like, are you fucking having a laugh here or what? Is this how you're going to start it off for me? Just like, boom, straight up. What have you got? No money? Here, you owe us a few £100 straight away off the back, cunt. So, listen. The reason I'm banging on about all that is because, and I touched on it, I said, I need to feel like something is going positively. I need to feel good about it in order to enjoy it. And when I'm not, when I'm putting myself out there or into a situation that's just like, you're wasting your time, mate, then I get real negative about it, right? And unfortunately, the podcast is a thing that I'm just like going, this is a failure. You're wasting your absolute time with this stuff, because people don't really. You're doing it 3 years. I'm doing it 3 years, and I have 84 subscribers. I think the last video got less than 50 views. And I'm not giving out, like, if it's just obviously not people's cup of tea. It's just not a thing. It didn't, it's not right. Whatever the thing is, you're not doing it right. And I can't see the wood for the trees. If it's a formatting issue or a content issue or it's just not good. You know what I mean? And but the reality of it is, like, I fucking hate. Like, I just go, oh my god, I just don't want to do it, basically. And I have to force myself to do it every time, and it's just going the wrong direction to give me any sort of impetus to go, yeah, this is fucking worthwhile, man. You know what I mean? It's just so realistically, this is going to be the last episode of the podcast. This is it. And I mean, I suppose we'll always say never no more. What's the reference? But I will so never say never, but unless I can really think of a way and get really excited about a format or a this, that and the other, then I don't see a future in it. And this is definitely like a major break, because like the reality of it is, it's like it's actually having a negative effect on me. And oh yeah, because here's the point, it's like I'm also like so fucking hopelessly disenchanted with the world that we live in. And I think maybe I'm feeding that or perpetuating that with the podcast. And like the podcast potentially was never meant to be what it now is. And I was having a real tough time before COVID. Even 4 years ago, I had been divorced or separated, and I was finding it really difficult. I was having a real tough time, and I was going through some fucking mad relationship shit in my head. Mad stuff. But good stuff as well. Like, that's the thing. It was really hard, but I grew from it. It was strengthened my character. It made me... I learned stuff about myself. Do you know what I mean? And... But at the time I was in a really bad place. And I was working through all that stuff. And I was chatting one day with a friend of mine and his brother, and I was just like, because like I said, I was really trying to like look deep inside myself and figure shit out, you know, and understand things about myself and ways in which I found X, Y, and Z hard, or A, B, and C easy, or you know what I mean. And like I said, during my marriage, there were times that during that relationship, my marriage, there were times when I was the worst version of myself, more so in the later part of the relationship. But I have definite issues and with relationships as a result of my upbringing, maybe, but as a result of the relationship I have with my own father, or always had. I don't really have a relationship with him now, but the relationship I had with him growing up. And but there was also times when I felt I was really fucking plugging away at it. And the same with, and that's a sort of, maybe that's sort of story of my life, and the problem with what I'm talking about is like, maybe I don't know what real hard work is, you know, what really plugging away at something. But then and then I say that to myself, and then another part of me kicks in and goes, well, hold on, like I know I worked hard at the restaurant. I know at times I was working hard at the marriage. I know I've worked hard, you know, but look, I don't know. It's just I would, you know, I felt like I wanted things to go my way in certain capacities, and the podcast was definitely one of them, and I just don't feel like it is going my way, and that's fine, but I have to be realistic about that. And so I was saying something there, and I span off a bit, didn't I? Is span a word? No, I spun off a bit. Oh yeah, and so like, I also need to the podcast. Yes, right, okay. And my friend was saying, like, that's some really interesting stuff, or you know, that's stuff that probably everyone feels and everyone wants to be real about. You should make a podcast about that sort of stuff. And that's how it started. The idea. That's where the seed was planted. Probably 2019, maybe, and then. It just morphed into something different, maybe. It morphed into this thing that maybe wasn't positive enough, and therefore, I don't know how to break that cycle at the moment, and that's what's, and it's and the content that I'm processing or taking in, and talking about on the podcast is not good for me, potentially, and it's negative, you know what I mean, sort of, and maybe that's having a negative effect on me. And with all of that in mind, like I said, this is going to be it. I wanted to make it to 60, we didn't make it, but look, I'm happy that I've done the podcast. I'm happy that I did it for 3 years, that I did give it a bit of a crack. I was inconsistent. Maybe that's my thing, you know, inconsistency. But I was inconsistent, but then I needed little successes to spur me on. I didn't get enough of them, potentially. And I've learned a lot from it, and I think I'm capable in ways that potentially I didn't realise I was capable, and potentially I have limitations in ways that I didn't realise I had limitations. And so, for now and for the foreseeable future, I just want to say for one last time, thanks very much. Inshallah alaikum. Wagwan.
That's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from a humble past, at one with the ground, the sound. And bring me back to that time. These modern folks are hounds now.